Just 2 years after it seemed Zimbabwe's currency was back on its way to better footing, warnings have been coming from all corners that the Zimbabwe dollar or Zim dollar could collapse at any time. The currency in Zimbabwe has a troubled history over the past decade and more. The country experienced hyperinflation beginning in 2007, hitting a peak month of inflation at 79.6 billion% month on month and 89.76% year on year in November 2008. Now, in April 2009, Zimbabwe stopped printing its currency, with currencies from other countries being used instead. Fast forward to June 2019, the Zimbabwean government announced the reintroduction of the RTGS dollar, now known as the Zimbabwe dollar, and that all foreign currency was no longer legal to tender. By mid-July 2019, inflation had increased to 175%, sparking concerns that the country was entering a new period of hyperinflation. In March 2020, with inflation above 500% annually, a new task force was created to assess currency issues. And by July 2020, annual inflation was estimated to be at 737%. And now, the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe has set its sights on parallel currency market traders in a move that it hopes will stabilize exchange rates in the economy. The Reserve Bank governor issued a statement saying the Financial Intelligence Unit has identified 30 individuals who are abusing the services as well as social media platforms to promote and facilitate illegal foreign exchange transactions and money laundering activities. Banks, mobile money operators, and other financial service providers have been instructed to identify and freeze any accounts operated by these individuals and to bar them for accessing financial services for 2 years with immediate effect. The FIU has also requested the Postal and Telecommunications Authority of Zimbabwe to bar the individuals from operating mobile phone lines. This is just one of the actions that the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe is taking. Today, we're looking at efforts that Zimbabwe is putting in to save its currency. I'm Tolulokwe Adelaru Balogun. Welcome. This is Business Edge. Joining me is Demford Mutashu. He's the president of the Confederation of Zimbabwe Retailers, as we get into this conversation as to how the country is attempting to save its currency. Demford, thank you so much for joining us on Business Edge.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right, so let's get straight into it. A lot of people are worried that they've seen this scenario and this situation with Zimbabwe before. Businesses are back to resorting to using the US dollar primarily for transactions. Now, 2 years after it seemed that the currency was getting itself back into place, how did Zimbabwe get back to this place again?
Well, remember, Zimbabwe went through the multi-currency regime around 2016 after in 2014, we were using the bond coins that were introduced to resolve the challenge of change. And then in 2016, we had the bond notes. But at the time of the introduction, there was a lot of uncertainty and, of course, anxiety that was created out of the people's rejection of the bond notes. So the confidence levels were so low that, of course, government and business had to work together for the acceptance of the bond notes. So currently, Zimbabwe is using, of course, its own currency, the Zim dollar, alongside the United States dollars, as well as the South African rands and Botswana pula and other currencies. So this has been necessitated out of the requirement to have our own currency, because we became uncompetitive against the region. So we needed to have our own currency that monetary authorities could apply monetary instruments in order to promote economic growth. Of course, last year, the country also adopted the auction system. So the auction market is a result of government and business coming together to have a stable and, of course, predictable market where business can source foreign currency. Of course, this has been necessitated because of the growing a parallel market in its shape, form, and stature, which was pushing volumes and, of course, causing instability on the exchange rate.
All right, so let's get into some of the allegations, or at least the claims coming from the Reserve Bank, the Central Bank of Zimbabwe's governor. He claimed in September that there were certain individuals who have been abusing mobile telecommunication services and other social media platforms to promote and facilitate illegal foreign currency transactions, basically saying they're manipulating the currency system as it is right now. One, do you believe that there is this high level of manipulation going on? And secondly, is that high level of manipulation from these individuals enough to destabilize the Zim dollar to the point that we're seeing right now?
You see, a currency has got to play certain characteristics. It has got to be used as a medium of exchange, a store of value. And of course, this is quite critical, and it must have that scarcity. It should not be easily available. But we have seen that at the height of the current challenges, the auction system has also been abused by certain companies and corporates and individuals who took advantage of the arbitrage opportunity where, for example, they would acquire the foreign currency at 89 to 1, and then sell it off at the parallel market at around 170 to 1. So those arbitrage opportunities have also caused the instability in terms of supply of foreign currency, that the bids have failed to be successfully met by the Reserve Bank after people have gone on the market and abused the foreign currency. So it is a matter of consistent supply of foreign currency onto the auction system and plugging the holes that have been identified where individuals and businesses have been using those opportunities to advance their own selfish ends. So indeed, yes, where we are now, it has actually ensured that then government has to come through with some measures in order to curtail the instability that is ongoing. But just as a background, Zimbabwe has got, its economy is 70% informal and 30% formal. So the fundamental challenge is that where you should enforce the usage of or rather application of the exchange rate, you then need to have uniformity on the market. But unfortunately, right now, there are some that are accessing foreign currency from the auction system and attempt to apply the auction rate when pricing their goods and services. But the concerns from business is that the foreign currency that is being accessed from the auction system constitutes about 30 to 40% of their total foreign currency requirements. So they end up, of course, using sales from their sales, to convert in order for them to procure and augment that which they get from the auction system. Okay. And of course, the balance is sought from the parallel market. So the existence of the parallel market is the elephant in the room. It has been informed by the huge and rising demand for foreign currency, especially after the economy opened up after successive lockdowns due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Okay, it's interesting you bring that up because we've seen a move here in Nigeria from the central bank to also sort of ban those who are working in the foreign currency in the parallel market side, and that's the bureaus they change. But Zimbabwe has not done that. Zimbabwe has gone after this category of people. So I'm still coming back because this is not the first time that we're seeing Zimbabwe ban individuals or ban mobile money agents in the country in order to curtail unlawful trading. This happened in 2020. We're back now in 2021 with the same tactics. Apparently, these tactics are not working. Do you think that this time around that the ban is going to have the desired effect, or is it time now for Zimbabwe and those who are in authority and control of the economy and making these regulatory decisions, they need to start thinking out of the box?
Well, I think the measures have, of course, paid off so far because we have seen the rate at the parallel market tumbling, especially over this particular weekend. It is, the mobile rate has actually moved from around 170 to the current 145 to 1. That is if you are using the mobile money. But for swipe and other electronic money, it has also come down to around 160 to 1, moving back from 190 to 1. So far we've seen that there has been a sense of stability, but we believe that what is critical at the moment is for government and business to continuously engage, because sometimes moral suasion can work wonders, especially in an environment where there has not been a lot of trust on the Zim dollar itself, given the background that it was introduced. Probably a lot of people, it came back got to be viewed as a bond note, which a lot of people here did not want or did not accept, because it could not, of course, be used as a store of value. And right now, the challenge also is that if someone receives diaspora remittances, especially at family level, they take the money and go to the parallel market, exchange it at the higher rate that is enticing and offered by the parallel market before they can walk into a formal store to make a purchase. And even outside formal stores, you have a lot of money changers that are actually marauding. They intercept customers before they walk into the store, and of course take the customer and offer them at a higher rate. So sometimes it becomes very difficult to eradicate completely the parallel market. So what we need going forward, in order to stabilize our own currency, we need to sustain the production and output that has been rising. It came up from around 36% to the current levels of above 55%. So that a currency is as good as its country or its economy's production and productivity. So it is actually something that we need to actually come together with government and focus on issues and measures like import substitution, as well as an export drive, to ensure that we earn more foreign currency. Because I think the challenge, of course, has not been the supply as such, but it has been, of course, the allocative nature of the auction system that focuses on production, capital goods, and other essentials. So if you look at the structure of the supermarket, there are not many essential goods that a supermarket sells, but at the same time, they require to fill up their shelves with those non-essentials in order to improve their margins. So at the end of the day, you also have manufacturers and suppliers demanding payment in foreign currency, and a supplier is going to also augment that which they get from the auction system. So it's a conundrum. So at the end of the day, a retailer who does not have foreign currency is going to source the foreign currency from elsewhere. And I feel for those that are currently using the auction rate, especially because currently most suppliers are demanding US dollars. But if you look at the US dollar sales, they've actually slowed down and come down to below 2% of the daily takings, the hard currency sales.
All right, Denford, let me ask now. So you represent, you are the president of the Confederation of Zimbabwe Retailers, but let's talk about another one of the groups that has made a statement. So the Confederation of Zimbabwe Industries, I beg your pardon, which is the largest representative body for local industrialists, has issued a letter saying that it's cautioning the government against clamping down on firms and traders. It believes that the greatest risk the economy is facing right now is inappropriate policy response to the rising parallel market. Now, they're basically saying that they believe that government's response in terms of blacklisting these individuals is heavy-handed and not the appropriate response. And you said that even given this weekend, you've seen some of the numbers sort of balance out, come down a bit, and some value rising for the Zim dollar. In terms of the policy response, I've asked before, having the government focus on the traders as well, but you've also mentioned the shortage of locally produced goods, which is a large part of the currency value as well. Where does your organization stand looking at where the Confederation of Zimbabwe Industrialists stand?
What we believe is engagement, collective engagement with the government to ensure that we resolve any challenges that we face as a country. Of course, we can sit here and start, the blame game, but it will not solve our challenges. One of the issues that we are currently engaging with the government is the introduction of SI 127 of 2021, which was introduced by government in order to keep the arbitrage activities that were taking place, and also to ensure that there is compliance on pricing. And what we have noticed is that sometimes when such policies are introduced, they may have had a knock on the confidence on the market, and that instability is we are feeling the effects of those such instability that arose out of the introduction of Statutory Instrument 127. So it is a case of government and business coming together to, of course, thrash out the issues and finding common ground. Yes, the arrests have been taking place, but we've also called upon government to ensure that indeed, if they have to do their arrest, they've got to be focused on those that have abused the foreign currency that they sourced from the auction system, and not general business for pricing using, of course, the rates are above the parallel market, because a lot of these businesses may not be sourcing foreign currency from the auction system. So our point of departure has been that we need to zero in on those corporates that are accessing foreign currency from the auction system before we can bring in everyone on the basket, because the unintended consequences that we have seen starting to emerge is the issue of slowdown of supply by manufacturers and key suppliers, and hence we have seen increasing number of stock outs, and that is an area that we need to guard against. Any policy, whatever nature or form, must never lead to product supply or creation of another black market for basic commodities.
Okay, so Demford, this is my last question, and very quickly I need to get to this before we wrap up. There are those who are saying that at this point the Zimbabwean government should just free float the Zim dollar, let it find its level, let market forces determine its real value. But we know how that often plays out, particularly for economies and people at the lower end of the economic scale. It becomes a burden. Do you think at this point in time that it is a viable option for the government to consider floating the currency, or should they continue to see how the next 1 to 2 weeks will play out with some of the actions that they've taken up to now?
Apparently, I think a lot of people feel or think that the rate has been fixed because it has remained where it has been for a long time. But I think if you look at the bidding process, this is a bidding process, auction process, and a lot of corporates, if they go to the auction, they've been bidding for rates as low as around 60 to 1. So this is why it has remained where it is. But what we wish to have is, of course, to ensure that the supply of foreign currency improves, import substitution increases, exports have been driven in order to continuously supply the auction system. And the local content policy that currently falls under National Development Strategy 1 is got to be taken out onto the market so that there is more and more production that is going to take place locally in order for it to stabilize our own currency. Our currency is got to be supported by production. And of course, the arbitrage activities have got to be nipped from policy level, especially from strengthening the auction system and removing and, of course, plugging all those leakages and arbitrage opportunities that the auction system has created.
Okay. Demford Mutashu, we will continue to check base with you because we know that this is a very interesting conversation. It's a developing one. We'll see what the next 1 to 2 weeks plays out. There have been a series of meetings as well with the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe and business leaders and organizations such as your own. So we'll want to see what the actions give us in the next few weeks towards the end of the year. Thank you so much, Demford, for joining me on Business Edge.
The pleasure is mine. Thank you for inviting me to such a very good program.
Thank you. And that's what we do here. We make sure that you're up to date with all the business, economic, and financial news coming from around the continent. Zimbabwe is back to battling to save its currency. And the government has put market traders, parallel market traders, in its crosshairs, blaming them for the falling value of the Zimbabwe dollar. The actions they've taken in the past 1 to 2 weeks, are they going to bear fruit? Will we see a stabilization of the currency, particularly against the US dollar? We'll be watching very closely to see how things develop in Zimbabwe. But right now, what you can watch closely is NC4 to watch. It's right after this break. And as we wrap things up here, a few stories we're keeping our eyes on. Crude oil has rallied above $86 a barrel after Saudi Arabia urged members of the OPEC Plus alliance to maintain the cautious approach to managing global crude supplies, given the threat to demand still posed by the pandemic. Now, Nigeria and Azerbaijan have echoed this conservative stance. South Africa is currently in the midst of another stage 2 load shedding after a number of power stations suffered breakdowns last week. Eskom said this was due to a fault on a feed water pump, which is on the secondary plant. More money could be heading to Africa very soon. Silicon Valley venture investor Chamath Palihapitiya, who bets on blank check acquisition companies, and that earned him the nickname of the King of SPACs, has announced he will be making his maiden visit to the continent in December 2021. Now, during his trip, he will be hosting a series of fireside chats with startups and the investing community. And finally, Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari will unveil the nation's digital currency, the e-Naira, today in Abuja. Now, the launch of the central bank digital currency had been delayed from October the 1st. The Central Bank of Nigeria Governor Godwin Emefiele has said the e-Naira would operate as a wallet against which customers can hold existing funds in their bank accounts. It is the digital form of the Naira and will be used just like cash. And it's a wrap here from me on sets for Business Edge right here on News Central. Thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget to follow us on social media. And of course, go to our YouTube channel and subscribe, and also download our mobile app and take us with you wherever you go. We keep Africa first right here on News Central. I'll see you soon.